Hi, and welcome to the Materials Today podcast. I'm your host, Stuart Bland, editor of Materials Today. Thanks for joining us again. This week we spoke to Professor Stefano Curtarolo from Duke University and Professor Marco Nardelli from the University of North Texas about sharing material science data and the paper they recently published in the journal Computational Materials Science. You can find the paper, a RESTful API for exchanging materials data, in the aflowlib.org consortium, on Science Direct, as well as via materialstoday.com.
Hi, Stefano and Marco. How are you both today?
Great, thank you.
Fine, thank you very much.
Well, let's jump straight in, and as always, I'd like to ask if you can both start by introducing yourselves and your groups and telling us about your backgrounds.
So, let me introduce myself. I was born in Italy, and I did my studies in electrical engineering and in physics in Italy. Then I moved to United States. I have a PhD from MIT, and since then I have been. Thereafter, I became faculty at Duke, and that's it. Here I do computational material science and accelerated materials development, and I've been collaborating with Marco for the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, my name is Marco Nardelli. I'm also from Italy, but from Rome. I did my studies at the La Sapienza University for the undergraduate, did my PhD at the International School for Advanced Studies in Trieste, the SISSA. And then I moved to the U.S., to North Carolina State University, where I was postdoc and then faculty for many years, and only recently I moved to North Texas. In my group, we are kind of the theoretical electronic structure development part of this computational material science initiative with Stefano. So we develop more algorithmic and theoretical approaches to the problem of materials discovery.
So, you're about to publish a paper in the journal Computational Materials Science discussing the sharing of material science data contained in the aflowlib repository. But before we discuss this further, can you tell us why it's so important to share this kind of information?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's we are at a stage in material science, and mostly in the computational side of material science, where we really are beginning to be predictive of materials properties. So we have advanced computational methods, we have advanced theory, we have supercomputers that allow us to to explore the phase space of materials in a very efficient way. And this kind of information, I think it's becoming more and more essential for the description of the materials in general. So what, to get kind of a broad vision of materials properties on many different perspectives. And sharing this data is essential because it's first of all, it would be a waste if we had to reproduce the data every time we want to discover a new material. And on the other hand, the phase space is so large that the more people work on this development of databases, the more materials property we can collect, and the more exploration we can do, and more discovery eventually of materials for specific applications.
Now, you've developed a web-based API to improve the accessibility and utility of the aflowlib database. So what is aflowlib?
So aflowlib is a repository of the calculations made by a consortium, which has been around for around 10 years. And we have collected a lot of information and calculations, and so we decided to put online with an interface, which is this API that we published, so that also other people can look for materials and properties in an automatic fashion in the same way we do. aflowlib, the name is very simple. A means automatic, flow, the flow, and lib because it's the beginning of a library, so it's automatic flow library. That is the meaning. And all this data has been generated by a program called AFlow, which means automatic flow, which have been developing since the early 2000s, so it's pretty much 10, 12 years old. And it's a very long, very big code, and lately has been extended also in other directional materials development, like excited states, electronic structure, with the help of Marco. So that's the idea. Okay. So in addition, for us to do science with our data, we have decided to give the data to the others. Okay, so other people can do science with our data and probably find materials and the properties that we do not know how to do because it's beyond our expertise.
So what will this improved accessibility allow users to do?
Okay, so it's very simple. Before, the user, let's say a person that is interested in the data, would have to go online and play with the web, with the search engine and so on, and would interface with this web device and would be able only to get a few answers out of the database. Now, since we wrote this interface, our servers function as answering the queries that might come from automatic programs that look in our data. Okay, so now an hypothetical researcher in another place of the world could write his or her own code, which looks into our data in the clouds and download what is necessary. So before, the research was made online through our web. Now the research can be made remotely in the computer of the user by connecting to our data. So it's just a cloud interface to download the data. That's actually very important. So in the future, we foresee people developing applications for iPhones or for other medium or for other equipment, so that they can generate phase diagrams or correlate between materials, starting from our data without us even to know. Okay, so that's what is important, and our data is free, so there is no problems of royalties or intellectual property. So that's the idea underlying.
So in a way, I think that you have to look at this paper as kind of the user manual for AFlowLib, so that by following the specifications, the variables, the names that are all listed, you should be able to write your own app or daemon or whatever that runs into the database and look for whatever property you need.
So what's the next step in the project?
Well, the next step, on my perspective, is to make the data even more reliable and predictive that there are at this time. I mean, it might be very technical at this point, but all this data are generated using electronic structure calculation based on density functional theory, and so we know that we have approximations, we have simplifications that we have to do in order to solve this complicated equations that give us all these materials properties. And we are working very hard in order to develop techniques that would allow us to improve the reliability and veracity of the data without compromising the speed of the calculation, so that we can still have a fast way of obtaining these results at a higher level of approximation, so that we get much closer to say what you would actually measure in a real experiment, and that would boost the predictive properties of this database data.
Another extension, in addition to what Marco says, is as of now, user can download this information and follow our standard. we are working on a bidirectional standard, so the user, by using our little scripts, the user would generate his or her own input files and output files following our recipes, and so that the information, remote information, can be uploaded into our repository and be shared with the community. So it's some sort of Napster. Do you remember Napster many years ago? Okay, some sort of Napster for quantum calculations. So a lot of servers spread around the world where we all share information to look for better materials.
And one more extension of this, Stefano mentioned the standards. The standards for data are a very big problem, and there are meetings and conferences to discuss data standards. And we think that in the future we will get to the point where all the computational material science research will have these standards that will allow the interoperability of software, of codes, of databases, so that eventually it doesn't matter if you have generated your data using our programs or your programs. Eventually we should be able to use this concept of standards to gather the data in the same place and be used and shared for scientific purposes.
Fantastic. So finally, I'd like to finish by asking, as always, in your opinions, what are the other hot topics in material science right now?
I think that there are some topics that I would distinguish between the hot topics of the moment and the real big problems that we still have to solve. And you probably know that there are some materials that are they use every day, but nobody understands how they work. Say concrete, for instance. So it might not be hot in the sense that it's not one of these exotic topological phases that seem to gather a lot of the enthusiasm of theorists and experimentalists alike. But I think there are very solid problems that need to be solved. Structural materials, electronic materials, they are still there. I mean, we still have to find the next generation of materials for photovoltaics or for energy applications. If you look at the typical sessions in a materials conference this year, for instance, I think you have pretty much a good balance between all these different things. I mean, you have sessions on exotic topological insulators, or sessions on ceramics, on oxides, on soft materials. I mean, it's pretty broad. And eventually I think we need to solve real problems to make a difference in the world.
I would add, in addition to what Marco says, critical topics of material science are corrosion. Corrosion is a big problem in the world because we have all our metallic structures that get eaten constantly by the environment, and it's a big problem because we want to protect these structures and have them last longer, right? So bridges and buildings and so on. Then another, so this is a big area of research. Then another area of research is that magnets, because now we have windmills and everywhere we're going to have more and more electric cars. But the truth is that is a sad truth, is that there is not enough rare earths like neodymium, dysprosium, samarium to make these permanent magnets. Okay, so to have a Toyota Prius for everybody, so there is not enough of these materials. So there is a lot of research to make to find magnets without having this rare materials that are difficult to find, and they also pose an environmental hazard when they are extracted. Then there is information storage. The hard disks are getting smaller and smaller, but the size of a bit, it cannot be reduced any further in the current substrate, because we are at the limit. So at the same time you want to store more, but have a higher reliability of the data. So you need to have a stronger medium in terms of coercitivity, and also probably also more anisotropic if you want to store more information. So there are a lot of issues that a lot of boundaries that we have been approaching the last 10, 20 years, and they're pretty much all right now. Okay, so new photovoltaics, new materials for electronics, new magnets for magnetic recording, or new magnets for electric engines, and pretty much we have a lot of challenges right now, and computational material science can play a role, and in our opinion, especially through the databases, so the information can be reused between different fields, okay, within computational material science.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for joining us today. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. We look forward for everything else.